All right, do we got the right Chelek over there, Yankel? Chelek Daled? Okay, Bereshus Tamar Dasra, we're continuing our shiur in Dirshu Halachah. It's with great Shavach V'Aidah to the Rabbinic Shalom that we are beginning today Chelek Daled of Mishnah Berurah. We are starting today with Siman Shin Mem Hey Din Arba Rishuyes B'Shabbos Ubay Yudtes Seifim. So, with Siman Shin Mem Hey, we are actually going to begin what is the first sugya in Masechta Shabbos, the sugya of Haitzah. So we're going to start discussing the halachas of Haitzah, what we know colloquially as carrying. Really, the definition of Haitzah is not really carrying, it's taking out, but that's what we call the halacha in English for some reason. So before we even begin with the Mechaber, if we go down into the Mishnah Berurah, the Mishnah Berurah begins with a small hakdama to Hilchos Shabbos, where the Mishnah Berurah kind of lays the foundation for the halachas of Haitzah. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Arba Rishuyos, Akdim Lozeh Hakdama Ketzara. I will begin with a short hakdama, a short introduction to the topic of Haitzah. V'hu, and that is, Hinei Haitzah merishus l'rishus, taking out something, removing something from one rishus, from one domain, to another type of halachic domain, Heavy miklal shar malachai she'asra ha'torah lasos b'yom haShabbos. It is included as one of the lamites malachais that the Torah forbade us to do on Shabbos. V'hu kechol gufei Torah she'nimseru l'Moshe miSinai. And it is just alike as all of the rest of the Torah that was given over to Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai. Now, it's interesting that in Halachah, the malacha of Haitzah is referred to as a malacha gerua. Malacha grua, if you translated the malacha grua, it's like a weak malacha. It doesn't mean that it's any less chamor than any one of the other lamites malachas. It is just as chamor as the other malachas that are asur on Shabbos. If somebody does haitzah b'mezid, chas v'shalom, he's chayiv misa. Somebody does it b'sheigig, he's chayiv to bring a karban chatos. Why is it called a malacha grua? I once heard in the name of Rabbi Belsky, Zechet Tzadik Levracha, that Haitzah is called a malacha gerua because the malacha itself, what is it? What is it? Other malachas, we look at Baina. Baina, you built something. Seiser, you broke something down. Kaisev, you produced writing, you produced letters. Haitzah, what did you do? You moved something. You moved something a little bit. You moved it, it could be that you moved it really, really a tiny amount of space from one side of the doorway to the other side of the doorway. And what effort is involved in it? What kind of labor is involved in it? And yet, it's asur. It's also a malacha grua in the sense that the laws of Haitzah, it's like I said, it's the first sugya in Masechta Shabbos. They're so, what's the word? Dakistic is the word I would use in Hebrew. Right, thank you. They're so intricate. The laws and the details of Haitzah are so intricate and sometimes not so well defined. And yet, again, it is just as chamor as all of the other lamites malachas. Yeah, but Haitzah, you could make an erev. Yeah.
I also wanted to say that it's not totally in work or anything like this. You know, you accomplished something. I mean, that you did something by hand or something. The whole idea of malachos is doing something that wasn't there before. It's like a creation.
And that's not it, right? And the Haitzah is different.
It is a creation,
right?
But you don't realize it because this object was here, and now the object is in another domain.
And it didn't exist there before.
It didn't exist there before.
Yeah, but even like, to give you an example, you make an erev, and you have a lechi, right? You have a lechi. Let's say nowadays where they use the wires, right? So you could have places where you have a telephone or electric wire that's 60 feet up in the air, and you want to make a lechi over here underneath the wire to catch the wire. And you have to know, is it level? Is it really underneath the wire? Is it not? The wire is that thin the lechi, so you use laser levels and you use this and you use that. But if you're off by a millimeter, there goes your eruv. You have no eruv, Ve'aviyu chachamenu al zeh raya gam kein mikra. The Chazal bring us a raya to the malacha of Eitzah from a pasuk. The Ksiv, it says in the pasuk in Shemais, Vayitzav Moshe commanded Ve'aviyu kerel b'machane, and they put out the word in the machane. Ish ve'isha yasu oid malacha l'srumas hakodesh. Nobody should do any more work for the truma to bring for the Mishkan. Vayikalei ha'am mehavi. And the nation stopped bringing products. They stopped bringing things that would be used for the Malachas HaMishkan. So you see, what does this pasuk say? Moshe Rabbeinu said, stop bringing truma, stop bringing things for use in the Malachas HaMishkan. And it says, what were the words? Al yasu oid malacha. Don't do any more malacha. L'trumas HaKodesh. Vayikalei ha'am mehavi. So the people stopped bringing. So the bringing of the truma from their Rishus HaYachid to Moshe Rabbeinu's Rishus HaRabim and the Machne Leviyah, that was called a malacha. They were bringing it alma dehava. You see that the bringing l'chol echad of each individual, merishusai, from his personal Rishus, shehu Rishus HaYachid, which is the Rishus HaYachid, l'rishusai shal Moshe, to the Rishus of Moshe, shehu Rishus HaRabim, which was the Rishus HaRabim, mepnei shehu Rabim mitzuyin sham, because Moshe Rabbeinu was situated in the Machne Leviyah, and where Moshe Rabbeinu was in the Machne Leviyah, everybody was coming constantly to learn Torah. So it had the size requirements of Rishus HaRabim, and it was Asuya l'Rabim. It was made for the Rabbim to come back and forth to learn Torah from Moshe Rabbeinu. So that was the Rishus HaRabim. Hu b'chlal malacha. You see that transference from the Rishus HaYachid to the Rishus HaRabim was called a malacha. V'hu adin, similarly says the Chavetz Chaim, the same way you're not allowed to remove something from the Rishus HaYachid to the Rishus HaRabim, so too you're not allowed to bring something in from the Rishus HaRabim to the Rishus HaYachid. They're both Isurei Daraisa. The only difference is that bringing something in is a tolda. Haitzah, taking something out from the Rishus HaYachid to the Rishus HaRabim, that's the Av Malacha. Bringing something in from the Rishus HaRabim to the Rishus HaYachid, that is a tolda, but they're both Isurei Daraisa. The Eishayd Rishus Shlishi, there's another type of domain besides the Rishus HaRabim and the Rishus HaYachid that we're going to be discussing. Sheshmai karmelis, and that is called a karmelis. Shehu eino b'chlal Rishus HaRabim. It's not part of a Rishus HaRabim. It's not considered a Rishus HaRabim. It's not in the category of Rishus HaRabim. V'gam eino Rishus HaYachid, but it is also not a Rishus HaYachid. How so? She'ein loy mechitzos kedin Rishus HaYachid. It's not walled or fenced in. It's not enclosed with halachic enclosures. Therefore, doesn't constitute a Rishus HaYachid. The Chamavur b'Sif Daled, like we will see in Hashem in Sif Daled. I skipped. She'ein loy mechitzos kedin Rishus HaYachid. The Chamavur b'Sif Daled. Umin ha'Torah mutar lahachnis alahitzi mimenu l'Rishus HaYachid v'l'Rishus HaRabim. And really, midaraisa, you would be able to move something from a karmelis to a Rishus HaYachid or to a Rishus HaRabim or vice versa. But the Chachamim made this aser, so that you should not come to move something from a Rishus HaYachid to a Rishus HaRabim. Because not everybody knows all the intricate details of what constitutes an enclosure to really make something a Rishus HaYachid. There's also a fourth type of domain, which is called literally an exempt area. Like we will see at the end of this Siman in you're allowed to move something, to bring it in or to take it out, even whether to a Rishus HaYachid from the Makom P'tur or to a Rishus HaRabim from the Makom P'tur or vice versa. Now let's see the Mechaber. Zok the Mechaber. Arba Rishuyos l'Shabbos. There are four types of halachic domains when it comes to Hilchos Shabbos. Rishus HaYachid, you have a private domain. Or Rishus HaRabim, you have a public domain. Then you have a karmelis. So the karmelis is what the Chavetz Chaim was just discussing. A karmelis is a Rishus D'Rabbanan. Really, a karmelis a karmelis What is it? It's not a Rishus HaYachid, it's not a Rishus HaRabim. The halacha really would be, you want to move something from a karmelis to a Rishus HaYachid or a Rishus HaRabim, you would be allowed to. Karmelis, Perush, says the Ramah, what is this word karmelis? Rach mol. Rach means soft. Mol means full. That's one definition of rach and mol. Loilach, we're talking about something which is not soft, v'lo yavesh, but it's also not dried out. Now this word we have in the Torah, we have by the minchas ha'omer, by the carbon omer that we would bring, it says that it has to be brought out of ripe barley. And the words of the pasuk are geres carmel. Carmel means ripened. And carmel, it says in the pasuk, Rashi brings down, what is this word carmel? Carmel means kar, means that it's lach, it's soft, it's moist, it's not dried out. And mol, Rashi says, and we'll see this in Mishnah Berurah, mol, Rashi says, means moilelinaisai. You could roll it in your fingers, and that will make the grain begin to break up. So it's not dried out that it just crumbles totally. It's still soft, but if you roll it in your fingers and you mush it around, you could start to separate the husk from the grain. So over here in Halachah, they're using the word carmel as a contraction of rach and mol to connote something that's in an in-between state. Loilach, it's not really totally moist. V'lo yavesh, nor is it dried out. Ela beinani, it's in the middle. Hachanami, so too here when we discussed the Rishuyos of Shabbos. Lo Rishus HaYachid, this area that we're talking about is not a Rishus HaYachid halachically. It can't be categorized as a Rishus HaYachid. Why? Lefi she'ein lo mechitzos, because it has no enclosures. And a Rishus HaYachid must have enclosures. V'lo Rishus HaRabim, it's also not a public domain. It's also not really a Rishus HaRabim. Why? She'eina doima lediglei midbar, because it is not to be compared to the encampment of the Bnei Yisrael when they were in the midbar. In what sense can it not be compared to the diglei midbar? The lav l'hilucha de rabim avida, because it is not an area which is made for the hilucha de rabim, for people to travel through. So a great example of this would be what the Gemara uses for a karmelis. The Gemara talks about a bika. What's a bika? A bika is a plain. That's where they would have all the fields, right? So they have fields where they're growing crops. It could be a massive area. Space-wise, it definitely would constitute a Rishus HaRabim. We're going to see Rishus HaRabim has to be a minimum of 16 amos wide. You have a bika could be many, many, many times 16 amos wide. And it's not enclosed by fences. There's no walls. So really, from the aspect of size, from the perspective of size, and from the perspective of enclosures, it would seem to be a Rishus HaRabim. But it's not a Rishus HaRabim. The reason it's not a Rishus HaRabim is because it's not made Lihilucha D'Rabim. The place where you have fields, where you're growing crops, that's not a place for people to travel through. You go to where you need to go. You go on the walking path to go to the farm, to go to the grain. But you don't. It's not for traveling. So it doesn't constitute a Rishus HaRabim. So it's not a Rishus HaYachid, no enclosures. It's not a Rishus HaRabim. It's not a Hilucha D'Rabim Avidi. So what is it? It's a karmelis. And the karmelis, the Chachamim gave a karmelis the din of a separate type of Rishus, where midrabanon, you're not allowed to move anything into the karmelis from Rishus HaYachid, or anything from the karmelis into Rishus HaYachid, or to Rishus HaRabim, and we're going to explain it in greater detail as we go along. So that's 3 Rishuyas so far. So far we have a Rishus HaYachid that has enclosures, we have a Rishus HaRabim that's big and is made Lilucha D'Rabim, and now we have a karmelis, and now the Mechaber ends off Seif Aleph, Umakim Ptur. And we have this exempt area that we're going to discuss. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cut in Aleph. Karmelis, we said, is a contraction of Rachmol. Pirush, Carmel. Hakasav B'Torah, with the explanation of the word Carmel, Geras Carmel, that's written in the Torah. Hainu shenimlal bayod, that you could roll this grain around in your hand. Ve'enoi lach, and it's not truly fully moist. V'lo yavesh legamri, nor is it dried out. Elo kishemoyla l'naisai biyad, when you roll it around in your hand, Humisrakech legamri, it softens up totally, and it will begin to break up. Says the Mechaber in Sif Beis. Ezer Rishus HaYachid. Now we're going to start defining in more detail these different types of Rishuyos. Ezer Rishus HaYachid. What constitutes a Rishus HaYachid, a private domain? Makaim Hamukaf Mechitzais, an area that is surrounded by Mechitzais, by partitions, Gevayais Asar Tvachim, that are at least 10 Tvachim tall. A tefach, we always say, is somewhere between 3 and 4 inches. So 10 Tvachim, we're talking about 36 inches to 40 inches, 3.5 inches to a tefach. So we're talking about 3 feet to 40 inches approximately. So to be a Rishus HaYachid, there has to be an area that's enclosed with partitions that are at least 10 Tvachim tall. V'yesh bai, and it has to be an area, arba Tvachim al arba Tvachim a yoser. It has to be 4 Tvachim by 4 Tvachim. So we're talking approximately 16 inches by 16 inches minimum. So your minimum Rishus HaYachid, you have an area 16 inches by 16 inches surrounded with partitions of some type, minimum 36 to 40 inches tall. Says, let's go into the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut in bays. Hamukaf mechitzos. Now, it's not so simple. The words of the Mechaber here say that this area has to be enclosed by 4 partitions. Says the Chavetz Chaim, B'simin Shin Samach Gimel, we'll see Mirtz Hashem, Yisbayer will be explained, Kama mechitzos tzarech sheyehesham. How many partitions do you really need? And we'll see that you do not need 4 full partitions. There's going to be a machlokes rishonim. Do you need 3 full partitions and then a bit, like a tefach on the 4th side, or do you need only 2 partitions and a tefach on the 3rd side? We'll see. And we're going to see many, many more details about these partitions, or what constitutes partitions to make something a Rishus HaYachid and what does not. Ois Katan Gimel, the Mechaber said that this Rishus HaYachid has to be comprised of a minimum of an area of 4 Tvachim by 4 Tvachim. So it has to be 4 Tvachim square. Says the Chavetz Chaim, V'yesh Barabot Tvachim, Hine, Misif Yud Tes, from Sif Yud Tes Muchach, it is proven, the Be'inon that we need, Sheyehei Bein HaMechitzos Chalal Arba al Arba, that the inner space that's surrounded by the partitions has to be 4 Tvachim by 4 Tvachim. Ki oivi hamechitzos, the thickness of the walls, the thickness of the partitions, ein mitztarfos lozeh. That is not included in your 4 by 4. So the mechitzos have to be outside the 4 by 4. The inner area has to be 4 by 4. That is very clear from the lashon of the Mechaber in Sif Yud Tes. V'zeu das Rav HaPoskim. And the Chavetz Chaim says, this indeed is the opinion of Rav HaPoskim. The truth is that the Chazon Ish is metama on the Mishnah Berurah. The Chazon Ish says it's not true. Chazon Ish says it's not das Rav HaPoskim. But the Mishnah Berurah L'Chalapachas says it was das Rav HaPoskim. And he brings down here, if you look at the Sharitzin, who he's talking about, the Rebbeinu Chananel, the Rif, the Rambam, the Ramban, the Rashba, the Ritva. So these are Ikar Rishonim. V'yesh ben Rishonim shekasvu. However, the Chavetz Chaim says there are those Rishonim that say the gam oivi amachitzos mitztaref l'sherzeh, that the thickness of the walls are included in the 4 by 4. So it doesn't have to surround an area of 4 by 4. The thickness of the walls are included in the 4 by 4. Ube'eliyah Rabbah hevi b'shem Rashba. The Eliyah Rabbah brings in the name of the Rashba. Ukai gavne isagam came b'malchamos lechalik be'inyan zeh. That there's a small detail here. There's a caveat. The mechitzos avos, if the walls that are surrounding this Rishus HaYachid are thick. And by thick, I think the Mishnah Berurah really means over here that they're strong, not just thick. We'll see why. Sheroy l'haniach milamala daf al gabeim ulishtamisham, so that these mechitzos are strong enough so that you could put a board on top of the 4 mechitzos and you could use that area. So let's imagine what we're talking about here. We're talking about, let's say, a big refrigerator box, right? Not even a small refrigerator box. We're talking about 16 by 16 inches. We have 4 mechitzas over here that are let's say 36 or 40 inches tall. Now, if the walls are a little bit thick, so we're going to move the walls in, right? So now we're no longer surrounding 16 by 16. Let's say we're surrounding 12 by 12, right? And we have a little bit thick mechitzas on the 4 sides. But let's say these walls, they're not made out of cardboard. These walls are made out of some kind of plastic or something. And you could take a sheet of plywood, and you could put a sheet of plywood that's 16 by 16 on top. Well, guess what? Now you have a usable area of 16 by 16 on top. And we're going to see that the halachah is, if you have 16 by 16 on top, and it's 10 tefachim off the ground, well, that top is now considered a rishus hayachid, because it's considered that these sides of the box, those are considered mechitzas that continue up. So now the top is a rishus hayachid. So therefore, what these Rishonim want to say is, yeah, you can have a rishus hayachid surrounded by walls if the walls are not surrounding an area of 16 by 16, if those walls are strong enough that if you wanted to, you could put a board on top and you would have a usable space on top. So you have a way, using these walls, you have a way to generate a usable 16 by 16. Okay? So, look, I give the Gam Nisakim Gimel Chametz L'Chalz Binyan Zeh. The mechitzas avoi sharoy lanyek milamala daf al gabei mulistamisham. Then mitzdaref ha'oivi yamacholol. Then the thickness of the wall combines with the surrounded area inside l'shir zed to make this minimum requirement of 4x4. Kevin sharoy lishtamisham, because you're creating an area that could be used. Them lav ein mitzdaref, and if not, then it does not combine. V'ayin ba'achrayim she'eskimu. The chol inyan shei nikra shem rishus hayachid al oivi hamechitza milamala. Now the Chavetz Chaim says the Achrayim seem to agree that this whole question of whether or not you're going to count the thickness of the walls, when does it really come to play? It only comes into play to decide what the status of the top of the walls are. Okay? That's the question. The question is, if the walls, if on the outside of the walls, you would measure a box of 4 by 4 tvachim, and the walls are strong enough that they could support a board on top, so then the top thickness of the walls gets a din of rishus hayachid. Avol le'inyan cholol shebesoich hamechitzos, but as far as the status of the inner area that's surrounded by the walls, everybody would agree that that is not called rishus hayachid. If the inside surrounded area is not 4 by 4. So you see what the Mishnah Berurah is saying here? What the Mishnah Berurah is saying is like this. He said, I gave you a machlokes rishonim, whether the thickness of the wall counts. However, what the Achrayim are saying is like this. If the inside area is not 4 by 4, then the inside area is not a rishus hayachid. Question is, if the outer perimeter with the walls is rishus hayachid, is 4 by 4, and the walls are strong enough that you could theoretically put a board on top, then even if you don't put a board on top, the thickness of the walls on top becomes a rishus hayachid. So the inside is not a rishus hayachid, but the top of the mechitzos are a rishus hayachid. Now you might think that, well, that doesn't seem to matter all that much, but it does, and I'll tell you why. Let's say this box-like contraption is sitting in middle of rishus harabim, right? So you have in middle of rishus harabim, you have this contraption sitting over here. Well, if the outside perimeter of that box is daled al daled, and it's 10 tefachim high, and let's say those outer mechitzas are only 2 inches thick. If you put something down on top of that 2-inch thick partition, you pick up something from rishus harabim and put it on top of that partition, you were just over haitzah. because you made an akira in Rishus HaRabim, and you put it down on a Rishus HaYachid. So it's an interesting case. Okay. Says the Mechaber. We go weiter in Siv Beis. So that was Rishus HaYachid. Is there Rishus HaYachid? The Mechaber said, Makam Amuk of Mechitzas, an area surrounded by partitions, Gavayas Asar Tfakim, that are 10 Tfakim high, V'yesh by Arba Tfakim al Arba Tfakim HaYoser, and it is an area of 4 by 4 Tfakim or more. V'chein, similarly, Charitz, let's say you had a ditch, you had a pit of some kind. Amayk Asara, that is 10 Tfakim deep, V'rochav Arba al Arba, and it is 4 by 4. So you have a 4 by 4, I don't know what you would call it, a pit or almost like a chute, going down into the ground. V'chein tail, or you have a mound. Gavoya asara, that's 10 tvachim high. V'rachav arba al arba, and it's 4 by 4 on the top. All of these would constitute a Rishus HaYachid. Says the Chavetz Chaim, is cut in Gimel. V'chein charitz, so to a pit. V'chein tail, or a mound. Interesting that the word tail in the Lashon HaKodesh and the word tel in English are the same thing. Tel Aviv is called Tel Aviv, I believe, because it was a hilly area. Tel Shomron. Tel, and in English also we use it. T-A-L is used to refer to a mound. Yeah. So v'chein charitz, v'chein tail. V'hu adin amud gavaya asar tvachim. Or let's say you had a platform that was 10 tvachim high. V'rochav arba al arba, and its surface is 4 by 4 tvachim. V'chol zeh afilu heimayim nim Rishus HaRabim. And this is all true even if they're standing in Rishus HaRabim. U'kid'lekamei b'sif yud. Ois cotton hay. Gavaya asara. Aval l'matel oya mechitza ishem pchusa me'asara tvachim. If this mound or the partitions are less than 10 tefachim tall, av shehem rechavim harbe, even if these areas are very wide, lav Rishus HaYachidu, it's not Rishus HaYachid because there's no mechitzos. Vein tzarich sheyehei hatel zokuf begoiva. When we talk about a mound, don't think it has to be that we have a raised area and the walls of the mound have to be vertical. They do not have to be vertical. The walls of the mound could be sloped. But there is a minimum shear to the slope. Ela afilu hu meshupa, even if the walls of the mound are sloped. Im mislaket asara tfachim begoiva, if the slope is such that it gathers 10 tfachim of height, mitoich shipua arba amos, in a horizontal distance of 4 amos, hevi ki'ilu zakif kuloi, that's considered as if it's vertical, and we consider it a mechitza. So again, let's just remember what we're talking about here. We're talking about a raised mound, let's say in the Rishus HaRabim, and the top surface is a minimum of 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim. And the top is a Rishus HaYachid. Why is the top a Rishus HaYachid? Because the sides of this mound are going to be considered the mechitzos of the top. And we're going to see what halakha l'maisha b'sinai that is. That's halakha l'maisha b'sinai. So again, let's say this is the raised mound. It's 10 tvachim high. So we look at the side over here as if it continues up, and that's what the mechitza is around the top surface. What the Mishnah Berurah is saying here is, don't think that the sides have to be vertical. The sides can even be sloped. But what's the slope? It has to be a slope that increases a height of yud tvachim within a distance of, what did he say? Daled amos. Within a distance of Daled amos. Why that slope? The reason for that slope is because that's the slope that the Gemara says is lo nicha tashmishte. It's not comfortable to walk up that level of a slope. And since that level of a slope is not comfortable to walk up, and if you want to picture it in your mind, we're talking about approximately a rise of 40 inches over a distance of between 7 and 8 feet. That's the kind of rise we're talking about. That's considered leinicha tashmishte. It's not comfortable to use that level of a rise. Once it's not comfortable to climb that level of a rise, we look at it as if it's vertical. It's not usable horizontal area. It's not considered a usable surface of the Rishus Harabim. So therefore, we give it a din as if it's going straight up.
It goes from the widest part, the wall then goes from the widest part, slope like this, it will go from here. Where would you look at
I'm not following you.
If you have a slope on the mountain going like this, where would they consider the wall? Like here or from here?
No, I believe from there, from the top, from where it hits the surface.
So it goes straight down.
Yeah. V'hareyu Rishus Hayachid will become Gavai, so the upper surface would be a Rishus Hayachid. Now, here we have today's math lesson. Let's finish off. Let's see the Ramah in Sif Beis. Haga Yesh Oimrim. So until now we have said that the Rishus Hayachid has to be 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim, right? So let's say approximately 4 by 4. Let's say about approximately 16 inches. Haga Yesh Oimrim. There are those that say the be'inon be'elu arba al arba, that when we say 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim, we don't really mean 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim. What we mean is hein va'alachsoinon. We mean with the diagonal. And I'll show you what that means in a second. U'kamoishe yisparla kamon simin shin mem tes, and this is brought from our Gas Hashri. What this means is like this. Could you see this diagram? Can you see it? Okay. If you look at this diagram, what you'll notice is I have over here a square. See the inner square? That inner square is a square that's 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim. Each side of that square is 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim. Now, when you have a square that's 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim, you're creating, if you remember your math, you're creating two, if you split the square in half, you have 2 right-angle triangles, right? And the diagonal of that square is the hypotenuse of 2 right-angle triangles. Now, those of you who remember your geometry, right, the Pythagorean theorem, if you want to figure out what that hypotenuse is, it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, if you use, let's say, 16 inches for 4 tvachim, so this square was 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim. A squared plus b squared gives you 32 inches. 32 inches, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The square of 32 would be 5 3/5, almost exactly. So, this shita holds that what does it mean, arba al arba? It doesn't mean a square that's arba al arba. It means you take the diagonal of an arba al arba square and you make a square whose sides are the sides of that diagonal. So you would end up with the outer square. The outer square here is 5 3/5 tvachim by 5 3/5 tvachim. So I saved you the bother of doing the math. So that's this shita. This shita holds that it doesn't mean arba al arba. It means 5 3/5 by 5 3/5. Now let's see the Chavetz Chaim. Eis Katan Vav. Hein va'alachsoinon kamoishe yisbar. Ritzono loymar. What the Ramah means to say is as follows. Kamoy sham l'inyan marver arba amos b'rishus harabim. Just like we're going to see Mirtz Hashem over there in Siman Shin Mem Tes, that when it comes to the Isser of carrying 4 amos in Rishus Harabim, Ein chayav l'kulei alma ad sheyav shir arba amosim alachsoin. You're only, the only case where everybody is in agreement that you're over a daraisa when you carry 4 amos in Rishus Harabim, it doesn't mean really 4 amos. It means the hypotenuse, it means the diagonal of a 4 amos square. Which comes to 5 3/5 of an amma, 5 amos and 3/5 of an amma. Kain bin Yanenu, so too over here, Leinian Rishus Hayachid, when we're discussing the area of Rishus Hayachid, Ein Nikra Rishus Hayachid, we do not call an area of Rishus Hayachid, Ad Sheyiyah Shir Roichav Arba Tvachim Im Alachsoinon, only when you have that hypotenuse, when you have a square that's 5 3/5 by 5 3/5. The Levush, when he wrote his Sefer, left this shita out. That he was right for leaving it out. Because it's only a singular opinion. And all the Rishonim argue on this opinion. Usvir Lahu, and they hold Dimhurak Arba al Arba Meruba, that just a square 4 by 4 Chashav Rishus HaYachid constitutes a Rishus HaYachid. And they say that this halach is different than the halach of carrying Arba Amis and Rishus HaRabim that we have in Shin Mem Tes, Linyan Havaras Arba Amis Rishus HaRabim, Ayin Sham, and we'll see the reasoning for that over there. The Gra also didn't agree with this shita because of Gamkein Deloidami the Kaman Siman Shin Mem Tes, Ayin Sham. Mechaber Siv Gimel. Kisalim Hamakifim Rishus HaYachid, the walls that surround a Rishus HaYachid, Al Gabehem Rishus HaYachid. The tops of those walls are considered a Rishus HaYachid, Afilu Einam Rechavim Arba, even if the walls themselves do not have a thickness of 4 tvachim. So this is like we said before. You could have the thickness of walls could constitute a Rishus HaYachid, even though the tops of the walls are very, very, very small. Now, it doesn't matter. Once walls surround a Rishus HaYachid, the top thickness of those walls automatically has a din of Rishus HaYachid. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Eis Katan Zayin, Kisalam Hamakifim Rishus HaYachid. Ritzayin Aloymar, what does the Mechaber mean by that phrase? Walls that surround the Rishus HaYachid. Ritzayin Aloymar, Shal Yedei Aksalim, that through these walls, Nasa HaCholol Shebifnim Rishus HaYachid. The inner area surrounded by these walls became a Rishus HaYachid because of these walls. So then the tops of these walls are a Rishus HaYachid. Afilu Einam Rechavim Arba, even if they are not 4 tvachim wide. Ritzayin Aloymar, Sha'ovi Aksalim, the thickness of the walls, Ein Roichav Avyon Arba tvachim Kishir Rishus HaYachid. The top, the thickness, the top surface of these walls are not Daled al Daled. Say they do not seem to have the minimum surface area to constitute a Rishus HaYachid. Even so, Yeshem Rishus HaYachid Gam al Avyon Milamala. Still so, the thicknesses of these walls get a din of Rishus HaYachid. V'atam, and the reason is, Tekeven Shehem Oisim Al Yedei Hekif Shalahem. Since it is by virtue of their surrounding the Rishus HaYachid, Hakolol Shebasechin Rishus HaYachid, these walls are what makes the inner area of Rishus HaYachid. Kal v'chomer she'em atzmam yu Rishus HaYachid. It's a kal v'chomer. Certainly the walls themselves have a din of Rishus HaYachid. So just again, to put this in perspective, you have walls, let's say, that are 6 inches thick. And you have, these walls are 4 feet tall. Right? So 4 feet is 48 inches. So you have a 48 inch tall mechitza that's 6 inches thick. And it surrounds an area that's big enough to be a Rishus HaYachid. Right? It surrounds an area, let's say 10 feet by 10 feet. So there's no question. The inner area is surrounded by 4 mechitzas that are 10 tefachim tall. The inner area is a Rishus HaYachid. Right? The top surface of these walls, that 6 inch area, that 6 inch ledge on top is a Rishus HaYachid. Now, let's say